In this video, I'm going to give you my final picks for UFC 285. We're going to look at DraftKings, we're going to look at lineup construction, and I'm going to give you some access to free money later on, so make sure you watch until the end. You can call me Kunath. Let's make some money this week. Before you sink your teeth into this, make sure you go back and watch the predictions video from earlier in the week, and if you haven't already, that'll be linked right in the description. Also in the description and a pinned comment is going to be a link to KunathMMA.com. That's where you'll find the official bets, the DFS strategy guide, DFS projections model, and more. Now there's no time to waste. We can get right into value plays. These are plays at 8,000 and below that you're going to need to put in your lineups to make everything work. Right at the top at 8,000, we have value on Julian Marquez. Julian Marquez has a 100% finish rate, and he's averaging 88 DraftKings points in fights that he wins. And up until his last fight, he showed insane durability. And if he can lean on that this week, he looks live to win this fight. And that's because Marc-Andre struggles with guys that go toe-to-toe with him. We saw that with his fight against Andrew Sanchez in his UFC debut. We saw that in his fight with Shevchenko, with Iron Turtle. He got sparked by Chidi and Njokuani in 16 seconds, and he looked like a bad sparring partner against Fluffy Hernandez last time out. Marc-Andre's UFC wins are over Abu Azaitar, who gassed hard, and if you don't know who that is, I don't blame you. Who? He also beat Dolce Gambula, who's looked horrible in the UFC, and Jordan Wright, who was recently released. I expected Julian Marquez to stay in his face and be a step ahead in the grappling and fight him for a hard 3 rounds. Personally, I think that he's going to win a decision, but a stoppage win for Marquez would not surprise me at all, and that makes him a strong value here at 8,000 salary. Now our next value play is right at 7,900. We have Viviane Araujo. I'm actually changing my pick from earlier in the week from Ribas to Araujo, and I think she's a strong value play in this spot. Why? That's a great question, let me tell you why. Araujo has fought at flyweight for her entire UFC career outside of her debut when she came in at bantamweight. So she should be bigger. She's going to be slightly taller, slightly longer, and she's probably physically stronger than Ribas, and Ribas does wear damage. We saw that in her last fight against Katlyn Chookagian. Earlier in the week, I talked about Ribas' striking defense, but I want to walk those comments back a little bit because you have to look at her level of competition even in the UFC. Emily Whitmire, not good. Mackenzie Dern, can't strike. Randa Marcos, not good. Paige Van Zandt, not exactly murderer's row we're talking about. But Ribas is a flyweight now, and based on what we saw with her in her last fight against Katlyn Chookagian, who couldn't finish a sandwich, how long do you think she would last in a fight against Alexa Grasso before getting knocked out? My guess is not that long. Araujo's coming off a 5-round fight with Alexa Grasso. Granted, she did lose nearly every round, but I rate her durability more highly than I think of Ribas. And I think if she's able to get on top, she can ride out the round in a dominant position over Ribas, who might spend more time on her back than you'd like. She's got good jiu-jitsu, and sometimes people are overconfident in their jiu-jitsu and they're trying to work their submissions off their back, and it just results in more control time for the person on top. Now you're going to look at this fight log, and a lot of people are going to, and you're going to notice that Araujo is not putting up huge DraftKings scores. Come here. That's kind of the point. Ribas is a slight betting favorite, but a massive, overwhelming fan favorite. For that reason, she's going to carry more ownership than Viviane Araujo, and Viviane Araujo, if she puts together, say, a 90-point performance at low ownership, can really shake things up on this slate. If you're running multiple lineups, being overweight to the field on Vivi could be very sneaky. So good value this week at 7,900. Our next value play is down at $7,600 Jalin Turner, who has all the tools you can ask for. He's got multiple ways to win this fight. He's going to have a 5-inch height advantage, a 5-inch reach advantage, full training camp, tons of momentum, and he's clearly the fighter who's reaching his prime. Mateusz Gamrot's gone to war inside and outside of the UFC. Now, respect to him for taking this fight on short notice and keeping Jalin Turner on the card for us, but this is a be careful what you wish for spot in my eyes for Gamrot. Because Gamrot's been dropped in his last 2 fights, Jalin Turner has a ton of power in his hands. Gamrot shoots for low single leg takedowns constantly. Jalin Turner has a hell of a step in knee. He's also got a serious guillotine choke, and for those reasons, I like his finishing upside and his underdog price here on DraftKings. And I mean, if we just take a second to take a look at his fight log.
Oh, would you look at that? Just look at that.
117, 106, 112, 125, 107, 129. In fights that he's winning, he's averaging over 115 DraftKings points. So he clearly has the highest scoring and highest possible value when it comes to DraftKings this week. JT, give me some of that. And just 100 salary down down from him, we have Blonde Brunson. He's back. This fight is close and I expect it to finish. I don't see this fight going the distance because both men have power, finishing ability, strong grappling. This fight does not see the third round. Now, a 32-year-old Derek Brunson would knock Dricus du Plessis out in about 4 minutes. A 39-year-old Derek Brunson only has about 4 minutes to knock du Plessis out because he's probably going to start gassing after that point. I like the wrestling followed by the ground and pound to make that possible. I also like the straight lefty throws that could catch Dricus du Plessis when he's blitzing in. And I don't see du Plessis taking Brunson down in the first round unless he rocks him on the feet first. But we've seen Derek Brunson impose his will several times in the past. And realistically, he's only losing to elite middleweights. Like, we're not going to talk about Derek Brunson when we talk about all-time great middleweights, but his resume to me is a lot like Alexander Gustafsson's. It's a rich history. He's fought the best of the best. He's beaten everyone who wasn't the champ. Gustafsson has the title fights, but Brunson has been in there with champions like Adesanya, Silva, Whitaker, and some awesome non-champions like Romero, Jacare, Cannonier. These are the only guys that he's losing to. Now, we'll surely see what Dricus du Plessis is made of this Saturday, but a vintage Blonde Brunson performance scores well on DraftKings. That builds value into his price down at 7,500. Now, I know we've had a lot of value plays so far, but we do have 14 fights to work with, a lot of live underdogs, and I think we have another one here with Mana Martinez. We talked about this a lot in the predictions video, but I think Mana Martinez is live to knock Cameron Saaiman out. Saaiman rushes in with his chin way up in the air. Mana Martinez has that power. He carries that power late. We saw that against Brandon Davis. We saw that a lot against Ronnie Lawrence in a spot where he was tired. He was made to work. Ronnie Lawrence kept taking him down, making him wrestle. That's very taxing, and he still carried that big power even late. Saaiman likes to strike. I don't think that he's going to be able to grapple effectively against Mana Martinez, and I think that Saaiman could knock Martinez out. But I do think that if they're going to just throw heavy leather back and forth, I give the advantage in power, experience, and durability to Mana Martinez. I think that the young kid could get cracked like he's never been cracked before, and we see Mana Martinez win this fight by knockout, scoring a ton of points in the process. Not many people are going to come into the UFC and have 4 knockdowns in their first 3 fights, so that's saying something. Mana Boy's got that serious power, and I think he makes a strong value play this week. And the last value play that we're going to look at is the UFC debut. It's actually a debut on both sides. Loic Razgabov versus Esteban Ribovics, and I think that Ribovics is a solid value play because of that early knockout upside, but it's hard for me to trust him considering level of competition, the fact that he is getting guys out of there so early and what he might look like late. Like Francisco Prado a couple of weeks ago, right? He was a guy with big power, big finishing upside, and as soon as the fight got away from him because of the grappling and getting tired, he just kind of checked out. He didn't really do much in the second round, didn't do anything in the third round, and I think we could have a similar situation on our hands here if Ribovic doesn't finish Razgabov in the first round, but I think that first round finishing upside is there. Not something I want to absolutely hang my hat on from a DraftKings perspective, but somebody who, if he wins, he probably scores a ton of points. I do have a bet on Ribovics just because of that upside and because of the odds. I don't think that Razgabov is really all that good himself, but from a DraftKings perspective, obviously a spot that you want to be weary of. I'm not saying you should stay away because I don't think you need to really limit your player pool to anyone who's not egregiously outmatched. Like, for example, you won't put Jamie Pickett in your player pool. You just can't. Now that we know where our value plays are, we can start building lineups. We'll start with cash game lineups, but before we do, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. Also, quick announcement, Oscar has been fired. Last video was his last video that he helped us work on. Now the position is open. If you want, it is a remote position. This is full-time employment. The yearly salary is 1 million Ugandan shillings, so take that as you will. If you're interested, you could let me know on Twitter, on KunathMMA.com, or in the comments, and I'll reach out to you. Now we could take a look at what we need to do in cash games this week. So normally you can just come in here, stack the main event, stack the co-main event in this situation because it is a 5-round fight as well that I think has a good chance of getting extended. So there are multiple ways that you can go about this. You can go with, say, Valentina Shevchenko, Alexa Grasso, and then if you want to punt somebody who's really cheap just to make the salary work, you can come down here and let's say you wanted to grab Ribovics at 7,200. You've got 8,866 left over. If you wanted, you could grab John Jones, 8,400. You have 9,100 left over. Tabitha Ricci has a great matchup, and then you come all the way up here to Ian Garry. That makes sense. Or you could take Ian Garry out and go with Shavkat Rakhmonov. That makes sense too. Another thing you could do with cash, I know I normally give you one look, but I'll just give you another one. You can go with Jones, you can go with Ciryl Gane, and now you can come all the way down here, and I think you could punt Alexa Grasso at 6,800. Now you've got 9,000 left over. What I'd like to do in this situation is probably come down to Cody Garbrandt. You can come up here to Tabitha Ricci, and this gets you all the way up to Bo Nickal at 9,600. You have a guaranteed winner here. You know that Bo Nickal will win, you know that Tabitha Ricci will win, and you pray for that Garbrandt chin. As always, in the DFS strategy guide on KunathMMA.com, we'll have the full cash game strategy there. If you do have a membership on KunathMMA.com, you can send me a direct message. I'll talk to you about your lineups if you'd like. We can cook up that winning cash game lineup. It's been money for the last 3 weeks for a lot of you. Now, if you're not playing cash games, you should. And I know that some of you probably don't like me talking about cash games all the time, but I mean, it's the way that you should be playing Draftkings MMA for the most part. Tournaments are fun, yes, but there's a lot of prize splitting, a lot of volatility, and sometimes things don't shake out the way that you want. I mean, Ryan Spann getting pulled from the card last week, that's crazy. But if you didn't touch the main event in your cash games, you were probably in a really good spot. So just something to consider. You should be playing more cash if you aren't already, and if you are playing cash, play more of it. Now we can look at tournament lineups, GPPs, big contest stuff, and how we can get different this week. Well, I think a lot of people are going to be looking to play Bo Nickal, and for good reason. The guy's got the first round upside more so than maybe anyone else on the card. I think that Shevchenko will be popular. I think that Shavkat Rakhmonov will be popular. I think Jon Jones will be popular. At this point, I mean, you technically could afford this. You go with Jamie Pickett, go with Alexa Grasso. This is kind of a cash game lineup. And obviously, when we're playing tournaments, we want 6 winners. So you're not going to want to do this. But there are ways that we can play some of them in different combinations and see how that works. Now, the chalk is probably going to start with a base just like this, Bo Nickal and Jon Jones. You'll see a whole lot of lineups with these two guys in there. And for good reason, right? That Bo Nickal upside, Jon Jones with 5 rounds to work. I think one of the more popular underdog plays this week on DraftKings is going to be Jalin Turner, with, again, for good reason. But people are going to have to start finding ways to save money in their lineups if they want to run something like this. They have to come down here and they have to grab another underdog. I see people greatly gravitating toward name value. So you're going to see a lot of Derek Brunsons. You'll see some Jeff Neal sprinkled in there, but let's say people did go with Derek Brunson. 8,450 left over. That's when you're kind of left in the mid-range. So you might see people come to Julian Marquez. That leaves 8,900 left over. So you can grab Tabitha Ricci. You can grab Cameron Simon in this case. You can grab Dricus du Plessis. If you wanted to come off of Derek Brunson, you can come back down here and grab somebody like Mana Martinez in this lineup. And honestly, this is not a terrible lineup, but this probably isn't what I would bring. So I have a couple of thoughts about this week's tournament. The main event might just be a spot where you stay away. And I say that because if this goes the full 5 rounds, we've seen Jon Jones score 85, 54 in 5 rounds is terrible. 77 points against Gustafsson in a finish with a takedown. 95 against OSP probably doesn't get it done for where his ownership's going to be this week. 101 is very solid. 115 against Glover Teixeira is very solid. 91 in that 5-round fight against Alexander Gustafsson, that's not going to cut it this week. And then these are finishes. 81 against Rashad Evans. So if he goes the distance and scores less than 100 points, which is very, very possible. Let's say he struggles to get Ciryl Gane down this week. Let's say that even if he does get him down, he doesn't land a whole lot of strikes or doesn't finish him. I think that a decision win for Jon Jones resulting in under 100 DraftKings points knocks him off the optimal lineup and he comes in way over-owned. We've talked about Ciryl Gane in the past. If you think Ciryl Gane's going to win, we've talked about some of the work that Ciryl Gane has done. Ciryl Gane does not score well on DraftKings. He's going to carry ownership being in the main event. He's got 99 points here in a finish. He's got 39 points in a loss against Francis Ngannou. Let's say they gave him that decision, he'd score 69 points. He's struggling to break 100 DraftKings points in 5-round decision wins. So my flag plant of the week, where I think you're going to be able to actually make money in your tournaments and cash at least, and possibly win your tournaments with this kind of strategy, I'm avoiding the main event this week. Not many people are going to want to do it. Not many people will think to do it. And when you total up where their ownership is going to come in, it's probably going to be around 70 to 80% of the field. Maybe even more to get Jon Jones down at that $8,400 price tag. That's very low. As for Valentina Shevchenko, who is going to be vastly less owned than Jon Jones, we've seen Valentina Shevchenko put up crazy numbers. Crazy numbers against Jennifer Maia. Talia Santos, she breaks 115, even in a fight where a lot of people thought she lost. I mean, realistically, these are all championship fights, right? But 111, 107, 134, 139, 108, 115, 160 against... Oh my god, that's just awful. But Valentina Shevchenko, if you've rostered her in her last 8 fights, she's shown up on the optimal lineup at least 6 times. So I want to plug Valentina Shevchenko in this lineup. Now we've got 81.20 left over per fighter, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to try to save some salary with Mana Martinez. I'm going to keep trying to save some salary here with Viviane Araujo. I'll plug in Jalin Turner as well at 7,600, giving us 88.50 left over to work with. Not only are we looking for upside, we're looking for leverage as well. Cody Garbrandt is not a button that people are dying to press this week, I promise you that. Shavkat Rakhmonov has a 100% finish rate. I don't mind that at all. Another way you could adjust this lineup is, say you take Araujo out, you come down to somebody like Brunson at 7,500. Now you've got 400 salary left over. You could take Cody Garbrandt out. You can come all the way up here and you can grab Tabitha Ricci at 8,900. Or if you don't want Tabitha Ricci in there, you could always just come off of Brunson. You could grab somebody like Julian Marquez, 8,400 left over. This is where you could plug in Jon Jones if you'd like. It's not the most clever. It's not the most creative. You're playing main event favorite, co-main event favorite, Shavkat Rakhmonov, big name value, but just a thought. Now let's look at something weird. Let's look at something that a lot of people probably aren't going to dial up. Clicking this button changes the game for you. No one's playing Farid Basharat this week. This is a guy that his name might as well be blurred out this week. I don't see a lot of people getting here. Tabitha Ricci, Viviane Araujo, come down here, and again, this is probably a Mana Martinez spot, maybe even a Ribas spot, 9,500 left over. A lot of people, if they were in this position, just click Valentina Shevchenko and move on. That actually makes a ton of sense, but if we're trying to get weird, dial up that Ian Garry, dial up that Strange, dial up that Sweet Chin Music. If you want to try something that a lot of people won't try, you could do this, where you get up to Bo Nickal and Valentina. You've got to save some salary here. Luckily, we know that a $400 walk from Tabitha Ricci puts us right at Cody No Love. This is that Strange that you need to dial up sometimes. That's just how it goes sometimes. And if we just take these guys out, even if you wanted to, you could come to Jon Jones. And I'll give you one more Strange look that you're probably not going to see a whole lot of this week. Farid Basharat. You've got Bo Nickal in there, 7,800. Let's come all the way down here. Let's grab Araujo. Let's grab Ribas. Let's grab Jalin Turner. Starting to fall into that pattern a little bit. And then just come back to Jon Jones, because why not? So just some ways to approach it with the value plays that we identified earlier. Again, you can send me your lineups if you'd like. There is a $1 winner-take-all contest that I put on DraftKings every week. Feel free to join that contest. Most of you can afford it with the crowns that you've accumulated, so it's free for you. But it's a good time. You get the bragging rights. You win everybody's dollar, and each week it seems to get a little bigger, and it's a lot of fun. And we can finish up by looking at some parlays with some higher or lower statistics from Underdog Fantasy, who is a sponsor of the show. For MMA, they offer a pick'em game, which is a game focused on individual players. You select 2 to 5 in their associated projection. You see Jon Jones over 90 strikes, basically 3 takedowns, and you could win up to 20 times your entry when you go 5 for 5. But even small entries, like just a 2-legger where you have, say, Jon Jones, Valentina Shevchenko, both higher strikes, you can do 3x on your money, which is getting like plus 300 odds on Sportsbook. And they do this for multiple sports. I'll just come over here and show you the NBA, NHL, college basketball, soccer, baseball, esports, tennis, golf, MMA, racing, and more. There's a ton of stuff that you can do this week, and some of my favorite plays are as follows. I'll show you here. Tabitha Ricci over or higher than 2.5 takedowns. She's gotten 5 takedowns in her last 2 fights, and Jessica Penne is there to be taken down. Ian Garry over half a takedown. I think that he will lean on his grappling a little bit this time, because Song is going to be throwing bombs. He might drop Song and then jump on top of him from there, and it won't count as a takedown, but I can't see him shooting for a takedown if Song overextends on a big hook. Bo Nickal, 14.5 significant strikes. I'd like to go higher, because I think that he'll soften Jamie Pickett up with some strikes, even if he gets him on the mat. That is not many. It takes a fighter maybe less than 10 seconds to land 14, 15 significant strikes. And then Valentina Shevchenko, I like the higher 2.5 takedowns as well. I'll give you one more just to bring it up to 5. Marc-Andre Barriol over 42.5 significant strikes or higher. Those guys go to war and they just throw a lot out there. I could see them landing way more and 42, 43 significant strikes. So if you were to take that, you'd go 20x. Let's say you did $20. That would be a $400 payout on this entry if all of them came through. And you could even get insurance, which would put that to 10x, so you'd only have to go 4 out of 5. You don't need to be perfect. If you want a free $20 to be able to do that, or really any amount up to $100, you can use my promo code Kunath when you make your first deposit, and it will match your first deposit. I'll also link the link that you can go through to have that done, so you don't have to put the promo code in there. That's going to be in a pinned comment. So in the pinned comment, you're going to see a link to KunathMMA.com. You're going to see the link to Underdog Fantasy, and you're going to see the link to the $1 winner-take-all contest this week. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Again, $1 million Ugandan shilling if you want Oscar's job. He's not here anymore. I'm just used to looking over there, but he's been let go. The position needs to be filled. Let me know.